Hi, welcome. I am Lee Hall. I am an associate professor in literacy studies at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And today I'm going to be finishing up with you this video series that I've had on critical digital pedagogy, which was part of an invited talk that I recently gave. And I have been sharing with you different perspectives and ways to think about engaging digital tools in your instruction. And if you have not watched the previous videos, I encourage you to do so because each one that follows builds on the one before it. So anyways, today in this video, what I want to do is talk to you about issues that I've had in critical digital pedagogy, and I'm going to give you some examples, and then I'm going to wrap things up with some final reflections for you. So first, I have to say that I have a lot of fun applying a critical digital pedagogical approach to my teaching. It is challenging. It is the kind of challenge that I love, though. But there are some issues that I have seen come up with this approach, and I'm going to be highlighting some of those for you. So first, a critical digital pedagogical approach is going to require everyone to do things differently. This means that teachers and students have to break out of habits of mind around teaching and learning. So even if you come willingly to this, the students might not. And just because we might get excited about doing things differently doesn't mean that our students will. And students can find themselves having to do things that they are not used to, which can make them uncomfortable. You might find them trying to shove what you're doing back into the box that they like and prefer, or at least think they prefer. Does your university support a critical digital pedagogical approach mindset? To what extent is it shared or welcomed by your colleagues? Remember the box format for the syllabus that I showed you in the very first video? I understand why we do that. Okay, I understand it's an attempt to make sure that syllabi are of a certain quality and that certain kinds of information are communicated to all the students across classes. I understand that. It helps with accreditation and being able to make sure that, certain things are present, or at least that we say that they're present in the course. But does it need to be a box? I suppose it makes it easier for an administrator to check off the syllabus, right, contains what it's supposed to. And accreditation and all of that, I get that. But we lose something there when we don't step back for a moment and question it, decide what it's promoting about teaching and learning, and then make an active, conscious choice about how we engage with it. And like I said, I still submit forms for all my syllabi. I said that back in the first video. Nobody wants me to turn in my syllabus as a wiki, right? So the example that I showed you in the first video, nobody wants that. I tried that once and got told to submit the form. So I did. I turned it into the appropriate administrator who said, I have no idea what this is and I don't know what you want me to do with it, and fill out the box. They didn't want to have conversations about it or anything, just fill out the box. But I don't have to hand that box out to students. I just have to hand it in to the administration. I can communicate the same kinds of information. I can communicate better information when I move outside of that box. But I want to give you an example. This is an example from my teaching. So it's an example of how I've worked to move outside my traditional ways of doing things and applying this critical digital pedagogical approach. But this is also an example of an issue that I've run into. It's an example of a struggle that I've had. So about a year ago, I wanted students in my politics of reading class to get a bigger perspective on the issues related to testing and education. So we've done a lot of reading about it, but I wanted them to see how others have or were experiencing this practice. Now, this particular experience has some flaws to it, and I can discuss those with you later if you'd like. This was my first time doing something like this, and it definitely needs some tweaks. I'm using it here, though, to make a larger point about what students can think when we ask them to experience school differently. So here you can see the directions. Students split up into groups, and we had 5 groups total. 4 were asked to leave the room to interview community members, and 1 group stayed behind with me. Now, students left the room and sent back what they were learning in the form of tweets. The group in the room that stayed behind took the tweets and began to pull them together to create a storify, which we then discussed after we had come back together as a class. Now, storify is a tool you can use to gather information from a number of social media sites like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can pull it together to create a story around whatever you'd like. You can place the information in any order you wish, and this was their finished product, which we published on Storify. I'm going to show you very quickly what this looked like. right? So you can, just take a look at that. And I'll put the link to this in the description so you can see, what all they have going on there. But those are their tweets, and then the students that stay behind ordered them in the way that they felt best represented the message that they were trying to convey. So we do this, it goes okay. And I'm really working here to try to get them up and interacting with people and seeing issues about testing and assessment and education from a bigger perspective. So a week or two later, I'm talking to, a young man in this class, and he tells me that he really enjoyed the Storify experience. He was in a group that had to leave the room and interview people. And he thought it was the best experience he had in the class as a whole. And he explained to me that he learned a great deal from it. But he also told me that despite how much he learned, he would have preferred it if he had been able to sit in the back of the room and listen to a lecture. And he told me, he fully acknowledged that if I had just lectured at him, that he would have learned less. He really believed that. And yet this is what he would have preferred, because as he told me, this is what he was used to. This is what he was comfortable with, all right? I found this absolutely fascinating, right? That despite the fact that he learned more by doing something that made him a little more uncomfortable, he would have preferred to have remained comfortable and have done something where he acknowledged he would have learned less, or the quality just would not have been as good as he believed it to be. And so this gets me to the end of my talk and a personal reflection I have on teaching and learning using a critical digital pedagogical approach. So teaching is about creating an experience and setting up a context for your students to engage with. Technology is then one tool that you can use to create particular types of experiences. Now, as a teacher, you can only do so much. You can create the context and identify the tools to use within that context, but then your students have to take up the tools and do something with them. So that means that teaching is always about being okay with letting go. And you have to let go on a few levels. First, you're going to have to acknowledge and then let go of anything that might make you uncomfortable with trying out technology. This means that you're going to have to acknowledge and find a way to be okay with something, potentially not working out. No matter how well you think everything through, get ready for an issue to pop up. Get ready for students to be confused, no matter how fantastic your directions are. Second, even if you're comfortable, you have to be okay with students not being comfortable, right? You have to expect that you will have students in your class that are not comfortable with what you're doing. But then on top of that, you got to be okay with that, right? So most students have a clear idea of what counts as school and what school should be like, right? From their perspective, they have this vision of this is what it means to be a student in a university setting. This means that they have some well thought out ideas about what you should be doing and what they should be doing. And so often this looks pretty traditional, right? Lecturing, reading, quizzes, tests, papers, some discussions, etc. So we're going to accept all of this uncomfortableness and messiness and expectations of what school is supposed to look like. And from there, we are going to start to think about how to undo all of that. So thank you for following along with my video series, and I sincerely hope that you got something out of this. I'll put my email in the comment section as well, and you should feel free to email me if you have any questions. And you can see a lot of the directions and reflections that I have on these kinds of approaches on my blog, which I will put in a link to in the description section as well. Thank you.